It's tarot story time. Good evening, my beautiful magical babies. We have gathered together on this evening to read a wonderful story. I'm so excited about this story. When I first got the deck and I was thumbing through this deck, I think this was one of the first cards that I saw, and I thought, oh man, this is so exciting. It is the story that goes with the Seven of Wands, and it's the story of John Henry. Did you ever hear this? I have to tell you, I grew up in Texas back in what you would call the Dark Ages. So I was in school like in the late 70s and all through the 80s. I graduated, well, I quit high school, but I would have graduated in 1991. We learned very little black history. There were very, very few black kids actually in my school. But John Henry was one of the stories that we read, that we heard. Now, I don't really even know if this is even based in reality, but there is a song. John Henry is a steel driving man, and I always thought, how cool. This guy, John Henry, was like, had it going on. So I'm so excited that this is the story that the author of this whole situation, Yoshi Yoshitani, chose. This is the only American story that this author chose for this deck in this book, and I just think that's so cool. And if I get the chance to talk to this author, if they will agree to be on my podcast next season, I haven't asked them yet, but I'm going to be on season 3 of Empower Your Magical Self. I really hope that they will answer, why John Henry? I mean, yay, John Henry, but of all the American stories, well, actually, I think there are some American Indian stories, but this is, I think, the only just like American story, not native. You know, please forgive my terminology. I'm just really excited. Okay. So, this is the story of John Henry, Alabama American folktale. A legend is told in the southern United States that not too long ago there was a man named John Henry. John Henry was born a slave and was freed during the Civil War. After receiving his freedom, he struck out to make his fortune and found a job with a railroad company. The train was becoming increasingly popular, and to keep up with demand, the railroad companies were laying down more and more track to connect the east with the west. And in order to lay down track, large swaths of land had to be cleared, rocks broken, and even hills cut through. John Henry was a giant of a man with a huge appetite for hard work done well, so he was a natural steel driver. Steel drivers, sometimes known as hammermen, would hammer thick steel spikes into rocks to make holes into which explosives would be dropped to blast away the rock. A steel driver was always assisted by a shaker who would crouch by the hole and spin the spike after each hammer. Together, an average steel driver and shaker could do a good day's work, but John Henry was no average man. His hammer was 14 pounds, and he could drive it for 10 to 12 hours a day, faster and longer than anyone else. There came a time when John Henry's railroad company arrived at a mountain that they could not bypass. They had to bore through it with the steel drivers' hammers and drills. At this moment, a salesman arrived. He told the railroad company that his new steam-powered drill could bore through the mountain faster and longer than any man. He claimed that with the drill, the railroad company didn't need any other workers and could let them go. John Henry refused to accept this. Defending the rights of the workers, John Henry agreed to the challenge and lifted up an even heavier hammer. The race began. The engine chugged and the man swung, and both were such a blur they were impossible to track. When the race ended, John Henry's heart burst from exhaustion, but he had won. The engine had drilled 9 feet, and John Henry had drilled 14. Damn, that is such a great story. It goes with the Seven of Wands. Seven of Wands represents indomitable will and standing up for one's beliefs. We need more of that. The keywords are struggle, fidelity, and resolve. John Henry was a freed slave and figure of strength and endurance. He symbolizes exploited labor and the dignity of humankind, fighting against the impossible for what is right. Yes, we love John Henry. The reflections are, what beliefs do I hold on to, even under pressure? Who or what am I up against? Just fascism, that's all. Is the fight in front of me part of a larger battle? Where do my loyalties lie? What results am I hoping for? How can I effectively promote my point of view? I think we have 3, maybe 4 cards left. I treasure this deck. It's so wonderful, and I hope that you are enjoying this journey that we've been on. I love you, and I will see you, my darling, tomorrow. Good night.